First saw the news that some Filipino guy got beat up just because he was Asian,
Yeah, that lady that
and
got
they were not
drop-kicked
even
us.
saying which Asian. It didn't even matter to these people,
Yeah.
as long as you looked Asian, you know. And I said, okay, something has to be done. This is ridiculous. I wasn't going to
You
stand
suggested
by.
that? Awesome. Awesome.
You know, I wasn't going to
suggested
stand by and say, "Oh, let this happen." I said, "No, what can we do?"
Yeah.
And I reached out to all of our, martial arts people and said, "Hey, is this something you guys?" They're all like, "Yes."
Yeah, seeing
Resoundingly.
him mad was a little scary.
Yeah,
Like, he was genuinely mad.
mad at the whole thing, and I said, "Okay," but my focus was that, well, elderly can't do the same things that these younger kids can do. So why would we teach them how to do these things? They would hurt themselves. So what did I teach? I said, okay, let's focus on surroundings awareness. You know, how to avoid being a victim.
Right.
You know, walk around with several people with you and never be by yourself. And that's what my whole thing was. On our show, we actually have a segment called Help, which is helping elderly lives with protection and awareness. That's what we call the program.
and awareness.
Beautiful.
And I videotaped the entire seminar that we had. It was like almost a 2-hour seminar, but I put it all on film and I put it up on our channel.
So those who couldn't make it could.
Could go and watch it. So if you get a chance, check it out.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we're elderly.
But you know, I can see now, looking back, you know, looking back
In
at
certain
how
areas.
history
Yes.
records this stuff, and
This
to see, you know, did you ever realize that Bruce Lee was a strong proponent for world peace and always said we're all under one sky?
This guy, yeah.
And he started that whole thing, but nobody ever followed through with it until now when all these things are starting to happen. So to me,
yeah.
Bruce Lee was like so far ahead of his time that he realized there was going to be a problem.
Well,
He was
he's-
just
yeah.
Bruce.
Yeah, he saw that because he wasn't, when he was in Hollywood, he wasn't,
Yeah, he saw it firsthand.
credited, yeah.
Well, he opened up the world to martial arts because it's like it was so closed just unto like Chinese kung fu, Chinese. Don't try anybody outside.
Yeah.
Oh, even his own people gave him flack for
Oh, yeah,
teaching
yeah.
outside of the
Yes.
Chinese culture.
That's the way it was. You know?
Did Dad ever talk about stuff like that with you?
Yeah, I kind of heard stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, Dad, sure, whatever.
I kind of heard Dad
I was-
talking
I was
to
a-
Bruce
I was a
about
teenage
stuff.
girl, I didn't care.
I kind of did, but it's not like I was
curious.
there right there all the time because they were always. They weren't really at our house when they're doing all their martial arts.
In
and
the
like-
backyard somewhere. In the
Well, see, my dad had a little carport, and he had a weight room in the back. And so his friends, if they go out there, will be back there, and of course we don't get to go back there. You know, it bother them. you know.
Kids. out of
Yeah.
the
So
way.
you were a little smitten by him, huh?
Oh, who wasn't? It's kind of like he was. Yeah.
Don't forget your husband.
I was like 12. I got, he's really good.
No, we
looking.
met somebody that wasn't smitten by him.
Yeah. Do you know Denise Gonzalez? Auntie Denise?
No.
What do you call her? So she used to train out of Wally J's place in
Is
Oakland.
she older?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she's about, no, she'd be about the same age as you now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And she met Bruce Lee, and he came to the school, because Wally J, who is obviously a practitioner, would have him come around from time to time.
Yeah.
And she was like, I didn't care too much for him. He was a little cocksure.
Well, that's the way he
You have to have that
was.
kind of attitude,
Yeah,
yes.
he has that. Yeah, but that's
that's-
him. You just accept
yeah.
him for what he was. I mean, but there was some. I mean, that's his personality.
But I thought that was cute. And then she realized, then
Man.
when he became famous, like, okay, things changed. It's like, oh,
I could have gotten something.
I could have gone on a date with him. Dang. But it's funny how
Remember,
we
he
look.
was always married all the time when he got
Yeah,
Yes,
he
he
was
was.
married
Yeah.
to Linda all this time. It's kind of like okay, and
It's a shame Linda had to find out all about his,
no.
dalliances, as you call them.
Yeah, I
but-
guess say that.
Yeah, but
She's like, be quiet, shut up. Leave him alone. You can say, go ahead, Dennis. We want to know.
Because Linda might see this.
Oh, Linda's definitely.
she's aware. She's
Yeah.
aware.
Yeah.
Now
Alliances.
she's got to be aware. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to take it in stride. Because here's the thing and what these conversations fascinate me, in that we chalk him up and he's a legend. He's no longer with us, so we remember all the great things that he did. Much of which is, of course, blown out of proportion because
It's
people
been
get so
embellished by
excited and
everybody,
it gets
yeah.
really embellished.
Yeah.
But I think what helps in talking with these grandmasters that we have is to find out how human they really are.
No,
Because
they are
just
human.
because you're human doesn't mean you can't achieve great things, and just
Mm-hmm.
because you've achieved great things doesn't mean you didn't have your flaws.
Mhm.
And I think making people see that allows us to be, you know what, maybe we could be a little bit more like them, because we're not that far apart. They're not this high up entity. They're actually a little closer down. They did great things. They're remembered, but maybe we can be a little bit more like them because the space is now smaller, because we see their flaws, and then that's why these parts of these conversations become important for me as a practitioner and as a fan, because you're not going to take, no matter what you say about him, whether true or not,
Yeah, you're not
it's
gonna-
not going to change my mind about who
Exactly.
he was and what he means to me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that our audience is the same way, because
Yeah.
there's some hardcore martial artists out there.
Oh yeah, we have a one of the guests who come on, Conrad Bowie. He's an incredible martial artist. He calls himself a man, a real man.
Yeah.
Which is a martial arts nerd. That's his.
Oh, really?
That's his acronym.
Martial arts nerd. Man. He's a real.
Oh,
but I mean, he lives and breathes Bruce Lee. I mean,
Yes.
he's constantly, quoting him and all these things because he saw what Bruce had to offer and how to look at things in a very logical way. Bruce Lee's martial arts wasn't the fictitious running on in air and
Yeah.
50 feet all of
Yeah,
these things,
that's-
but he
Yeah,
was just
fighting on bamboo branches.
very practical and very natural things. But that has made so many believers out of somebody saying,
Yes.
if he can do it, then so can I, because there was nothing magical or mystical about what he did. It was all grounded. I mean, Bruce Lee was very much into science.
Oh, yeah.
As far as how things work, the scientific aspects of the logical what the body can and can't do. He pushed it to its limits. I mean, that's where we got the TENS units that doctors now use. He was on that even way before that became a thing. So you have to understand. And then was he really just that logical in his ideas? So then he is just human. He isn't trying to do all these crazy things. When you watch his movies, you understood, though, that's wire work and this and that,
Right.
especially the Hong Kong stuff. But you understood that was okay. That's what that is.
Yeah.
But when he did the Jeet Kune Do, and his real stuff, you really saw it, and it's like, oh, this is a real logical approach to the martial arts,
Yes.
and that's what I loved about it. So that's just my
Well, you
take on it.
just think
He said-
about Bruce, and he was hanging around with all these older men. I mean, it's kind of like my dad. That's like older. His dad's like older.
What was the
so-
age difference between your dad and Bruce?
Let's see. Bruce was born in 1940. My dad was born in 1923. So 17 years. Okay.
Wow, and he met him when he was-
even
My dad, 1917.
so there was even a bigger gap. But he
My dad was one of the oldest
Okay.
students of his.
and James was older than my dad. James Lee was older than my dad. That was my dad.
But how amazing is that for this young kid to know to look to the elders,
And to
Yeah.
teach the elders.
and then could
Yeah.
teach them at the same time?
Well,
but
the elders were real interested in all this. It's like,
Because I
okay,
don't think the elders were a challenge.
Oh, okay.
It's like Bruce doesn't want any of this kind of.
well, I think he just
attitudes were,
thought that.
That is true. Yeah,
Well-
the younger
dual-
generation. Yeah.
But see, when you have older people, they've been through more and they're more mature. And because Bruce was ahead of a time, he's more mature for
more
his
mature.
age.
Yeah.
So I think people his age
Well,
probably didn't understand him as well as the
Exactly.
older ones.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of like and he got along with these guys so well.
Well,
It's
he
like,
said smart things, and guys were like,
okay,
have something there,
You
kid."
can hang out with us.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
not a dumb
Well,
idiot.
anyway, I guess he could,
You're not a snot-nosed kid.
he
Yeah.
could
Come here.
relate
Come sit
to
next to
him,
me.
you know,
Right.
more than the younger ones his age couldn't kind of relate because Bruce was way up here.
No, that's
and
a very
all
good
the
point,
kids
yeah.
at his age was so he's way beyond his age, his thinking and.
Yeah, his
Do you
contemporaries
ever
couldn't
wonder where
match.
he might have gotten all that?
Yeah,
I mean,
seriously.
where does that come from at that early age that you're already thinking way beyond,
I don't know. I don't
people
know.
your own age? That's amazing.
I don't really know.
I'm gonna have to ask Shannon.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
he trained with the elder, right? And so he respected the elders. So that would say that he got along with his elders.
So still culturally he carried that on, but he
Yeah.
presented it in a different way.
Well, in his own way,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, because your dad and your dad, they were born here in the United States, right?
Yes.
So,
So that,
was Bruce.
right. So there was definitely a separation from the old way of doing things, where a young person talking up or teaching an elder, would be unheard of in the Chinese culture, because
Hmm.
you listen to everything you're told and you don't speak out
Well,
of turn.
this is the older people listening to
Well,
someone
but that's what I'm
young.
saying.
And that's the rub, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's like it's so different from what it was in Hong Kong and China that
But
that's
this
why they were so
friendship
mad at him
that
for
started,
doing
it's like-
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was just so funny how it just happened that way, that we were going up there,
You just
and,
happened to be in
and
Seattle,
then it came down, and it just it's like, who would have thought that? Just that going up to
yeah.
the World's Fair with all this started that he came down to Oakland, and when he came down to Oakland, everything started.
Well, yeah, because also, I mean, his physique also changed from there, from this, skinny little guy.
Oh
to
yeah,
this.
I mean when you look at the
Sinuous.
old photos and you
Oh,
see,
God, yeah.
and you're like, wow, where did this? And
Well,
I
it's
hear
like-
and I understand that Uncle Alan was a big part of that.
Yeah,
Him
he
going
Well,
into the bodybuilding.
Yeah, because he
trained
was
in it.
Mr. Northern California.
Right.
And he always was in bodybuilding since high school. And
Oh, yeah,
he
it
was
helped him out a
into
lot.
all this stuff. And when I was a little girl, he was in all these contests, Mr. Chinatown, all this stuff. And I could see my dad always.
Dude, that was a good-looking man, too, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I've
So
seen
I
pictures of your dad.
understand that his weight bench was donated to
Well,
the people at the exhibition.
yeah.
How cool is that?
Now, Bob.
Did you write
has
your name
it.
on the bottom anywhere?
No, Bob has that, and
Yeah.
I told him I
know
did.
who-
I says I didn't know exactly when my dad got it, but it was not made by George. It was way before George.
Oh,
It's
wow.
like when I was born. It's like I think that bench was already there because my dad had won all these contests before I was even born.
Right.
And so he was still in contests when I was a little girl. I kind of remember, and the Mr. Chinatown stuff, and all his friends were bodybuilders, and they would come to the house. I kind of remember.
Have protein
And
parties.
then we would always have Christmas parties, big Christmas parties, and my dad, mom always had the Chamber of Commerce
Right.
bringing Santa Claus
peeking through a
in.
little hole
Well,
all the
one
time.
year we had Bruce over for Christmas, and he was doing the cha-cha and showing everybody at our party the cha-cha. And there's movies online of that.
Online?
That,
Okay. I thought back then they didn't have online.
no, they got
Wait
the
a minute.
film and they
Oh,
put
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
online, and you could see
Yeah.
at our party.
So that's your house.
Oh, you saw that?
I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, that's our Christmas parties all the time, and Bruce's.
I'm gonna have to
and
look
that's
for it
all
now.
my relatives and my mom and dad's
Oh my God,
friends
that's
and
funny.
neighbors and you name it. It's like
Well, where did you have the hole for you to peep through?
Yeah,
that
you
was
get-
a store.
Oh, that wasn't at your house.
Well, actually, it was
Store.
like a mailbox type thing, and my sister and I could see it, in the counter from that room. It's like we peeked through it, like with an old mailbox or something. I don't know how it is, but we used to just see what was going on.
I can just imagine you, this young teenage girl, just ogling Bruce like, oh my
Oh
God.
well, no, I didn't ogle anything like that.
Come on, I mean, he's a hot-looking guy.
Well, I just said, oh, he's really cute. But, he's already married at that time I was
Okay.
to you. And it's like, I knew that he had a family. And so it's like,
She's no homewrecker. How
no,
dare you?
she's
How
not.
dare you
I was
imply?
too young anyway, I was like, well, then he came over. Let's see, I was like 12 when my dad met him.
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
12.
when you
And
met
then,
Yeah, no,
and then when he came over, I was like, well, I wasn't like, I was a teenager in college and, like 18 or so when he was coming over. And then after that, he would come from LA, and I just kind of remember Dad used to go down there a lot when Bruce says, hey, I'm going to come down and visit my dad. One time went down there, came back, and he looked so different. I guess Bruce had gotten one of his hairstylists to cut my dad's hair or something. I come back and we look at Daddy and go, what happened to you? Oh, Bruce got my hair done or something. We're just
Because
doing
he
all
always had
this
his haircut like him, very, neat.
well, it was
Yeah.
kind of different. It was kind of like, I can't remember what it was. I just did look really weird. We weren't sure
70s
it was
style.
my dad.
Yeah.
So anyway, Bruce kind of, was experimenting, I guess.
Well,
with it.
he got someone older than him to be like, hey, you should change your hairstyle. I know
I
somebody.
know, Dad did it too. He's like,
So let me ask you guys this, and either one of you can answer this. Throughout your life, because you knew Bruce personally, and I'm sure you hear the stories, different things, and whatever else. Did a lot of those stories that sound crazy to you make you laugh? Like, no, he wasn't like that, or You know, like you hear about, oh yeah, the tongues are after him, or the evil spirits are going to get him, and all the crazy stories about his death and whatever else. Did any of that stuff like hit you? Like, you know, God, why are people doing it or saying these things? I mean,
Well, you don't know, what really happened.
right?
It's
But you
kinda-
hear the stories, right?
you hear it and you go, oh, is that true?
Right.
But unlike
Well,
most, you have a
Yeah,
comparison.
you
Yeah.
knew
She
him.
knew him more.
Well, we
Right.
knew. Well, I didn't know him that well. I mean, my dad knew him real well, but
Right.
I mean, because I would see him when he'd come over. But my dad actually went down there to see him, and they just spent time together. and-
Let's ask you this then. How did your dad react to all when the stories
Yeah.
like that reached his ears?
Well,
Yeah,
by
and-
the time after Bruce's death, he passed in 1973. I was already up here and married, and so I wasn't down there with my mom and dad and knowing what was going on there.
Oh,
But it was my dad who called, said something about that Bruce had passed, and I go, "What, Daddy? That's not right." And then we heard it on the news and stuff, and just kind of like,
Still in shock, yeah.
yeah. We go, because it was like I remember my dad saying like in May, he passed in July 20th, I think.
Right.
And in May or so like that, Bruce had told my dad, come down to LA, I'm going to be in LA. And I think he was going to the medical center for some kind of brain scan at that time. And and Dad couldn't get away. He was working and he says, oh, I can't get away that weekend or something. He says, well, I'm going to be here for the medical thing.
right.
And so that was the last time my dad got to talk to him, I think, before he went back to Hong Kong. And Dad says, oh, gosh, I should have just went down there, but I couldn't get away because
Right.
he was working. And
I mean,
so,
how could you know though?
yeah,
You know, how
so
can-
I remember that. And he says that Bruce's not feeling good or something. And I thought, gee, really? Him? I said, he's so young.
Fit?
And he mentioned that, yeah, he was down there doing some kind of
So
testing or
they
something.
kind of knew something was already going wrong even before.
Well, he was already
Bruce
getting
did,
tested.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bruce
Bruce
knew
knew there
something
was
was
something
happening.
going on. Yeah, so he was checking out, but not that it would be to that extreme.
To that extreme, right? Of course.
Yeah, but I guess he had some symptoms or something was
Right.
going on.
Yeah, I
But
didn't
I
know.
was up here and I really didn't know, but Dad was. I remember my dad saying that. Yeah, he should have gone down.
Yeah, my dad was the same way. He
Yeah?
says I didn't know anything. I wasn't home most of the time, and I was married and doing my own thing. And then he divorced my mom, or my mom divorced him, and then after,
Depends who you ask.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And so somebody dad said, yeah, he was the greatest. He was, no one can compare to him. One of the things that sometimes we talked about and everything.
Right.
And I found out more when I had to go and take care of my dad when he was with my stepmom. And he was saying things like, yeah, this was just a total loss for everyone because Bruce was such a great person. And that's the only thing that I learned from my dad. He said, and the last thing my dad said before he passed away, that Bruce told my dad, in any situation, he said, do any given thing. You have the talent, you have the abilities. Don't go by what others have taught, in sequence stuff. He says, you do what you have to do in that situation, and don't bother about typical
Yeah.
Conforming
stuff.
to anything
Conforming,
else.
yeah.
You know, and I love that because that resonates with everything that we do with our system.
Mhm.
We get the stink eye from the traditional FMA people because we don't,
No.
we're not doing what they think we should be doing.
Yeah, yeah. this-
And
this-
your father was right. You have to
it
find
just-
your own way because
Yeah.
it's what fits your body.
Mhm.
And for you to try to do
And
what
your
everybody else
needs.
is doing, if your body can't do it, you can't do it.
Right.
Mhm.
And I think that's where a lot of people drop out after a year of martial arts
Right.
because they realize my body's can't do this. It's not conducive to what I'm doing.
But what great advice for life itself.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Your dad is smart then, because this is the first time I've ever heard anybody say that in that context of in the martial arts of, do what you need to do for you.
That's what Bruce told him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
To
Don't get hung up on procedures or whatever.
and this is Bruce Lee at such a young age, knowing to say that, to realize this is the reality. You have to do what you do for you. That's amazing.
And my dad was outside the training area in Oakland when the big fight took place. And
Jack Ma.
and so Bruce
The
sent,
big minute and a half fight. Yeah.
Bruce sent everybody out, even my dad, so they had to wait outside until to the end of it.
Wow. So let's talk about this. Is important because there's so many different stories that came out of that.
Oh, yeah.
As you know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's giving their own version of it. But you on the outside, from your dad,
Literal outside.
what did you understand about all that was going on? I mean, what
Yeah,
Oh,
what did your dad say on the
because he was teaching white Americans,
Mm-hmm.
and so it wasn't against their philosophy that you don't teach out of your race. But
Wow.
the night that he had the fight, my dad really didn't find anything out from that. Bruce says, "Well, he got me once, but
I love it.
yeah." And then I said, "Well, who won?" He says, "I don't know. Bruce won't talk about it."
Whoa.
Wow, he's that. See,
Yeah, but I don't even to this day I don't know who won. It doesn't really matter, but it was like, okay, there was a challenge and there was a fight. And
Well, and Bruce
Whatever
said he got me
results.
once, and that was it. That's all he said on the fight.
yeah,
he hit me once.
yeah.
He got my hand. He got my hand.
It's an inside joke that a Filipino martial artist in a wheelchair said about training.
Yeah,
when
he was fighting
coming
with
up.
another student, a friend of his,
Hmm.
and they were going at it in the middle of the night.
in the
under-
dark shadow
in the
under
dark
a
shadow of a
tree. Yeah.
And
Oh, mind you, their sticks are wrapped in black tape.
so that nobody could see the tape at night.
Uh-huh.
And so they're going at it, and the next day, they call each other. Hey, how'd you do? He goes, oh man, I got bruises here, bruises here. He goes, how about you? What do you got? He goes, oh, you got my hand. So he
Okay.
didn't get hurt. He didn't get hurt at all. He was like, oh, you got my hand. You got my hand real